So these are some reflections in relationship to the Blue VMeme, and I'm commenting on a conundrum that Gilgamesh raised about, how to sort of relate to this structure, this kind of extreme fundamentalism that's sometimes associated with it. And I would say that that is probably more, there's good reason to think that the more extreme fundamentalism, which involves, warring for these belief systems, is a little bit pathological. I won't say extremely so, because I think that there is some zealotry that is sort of naturally involved in it, but there's many things that can be said about this, and I'm only halfway certain as to how I want to really tackle this. But digging into the kind of mindset a little bit of that structure, it naturally arises out of the need or desire to control one's impulses, because the red structure has with it this kind of power centrism, this desire for absolute power in many regards. And this structure seems to curb it and say, there's something greater than myself, and that which is greater needs to be given credence. And so a God is ascribed, and maybe, and in some sense that's true. I'd say, whether it's really just an alien being that's greater than us, or somebody that's more intellectually smart or musically smart, there are people that are greater than us at things. And so there's a reasonableness to do this, because there's a chaos that sort of arises out of one's belief that they are the strongest, the best at it, etc. The thing that I find most useful, or one of the most, is the purposefulness that's kind of associated with this. This VMeme, in its healthy sense, ascribes one purpose, the sense that they fit within a greater community. Notice that it is a more communicative meme in comparison to the red, which, again, in my fractal theory, the red system in the first tier is a reflection or a fractal expression of what they all call the first tier. Because I believe that it is an expression. The first tier is, in a sense, the third tier, and in my opinion, and that red VMeme is actually a fractal of what spiral dynamics calls the first tier. And so there's this sense of, I know that I'm an individual being now. I need to become very good at what I want to do. And so there's a sense that, I want to become powerful at it, or strive to become the best in a certain regard. And so all of the first tier sort of has this striving, and it's expressed in different ways throughout the memes. The blue VMeme has that same sort of power striving, but it's the power striving that's kind of converted into the need to transcend. All of these sort of purposes, in certain ways, which in some regards has been translated or used in it. Well, so that blue VMeme A has been manipulated heavily in the West to serve other agendas. So that's one thing. And so a lot of the deep, more esoteric, more useful information has in some regards been cut out or curbed or not focused on. But there's so much beauty in many of these thinkers that came out of, that really started many of these traditions, as you know. And it's the problem is that we look at it and we see, the fundamentalists that take some of this information and create us against them. But when we get closer to understanding the context in which they find themselves in, especially it's easier to understand in places like Africa where there is very little blue. There's maybe Central Africa, there's mostly like red, purple, and so creating these structures of blue is a higher importance. They really are kind of paving new ground in doing that in some sense, and so it's easier to see the purpose of doing it. It's easier to be okay with it, I'd say. And there's usually, because of that, it often is a healthier expression in some regards, because they've had to go through the intensity of red, and they really see themselves as creating a new thing in certain ways, and there's less money attached to it in some regards. So in my fractal theory, blue is actually an expression of what spiral dynamics kind of considers the second tier. In a certain way, I really believe that it's an expression of integration of data, where it was located in the first tier. It had associated with it that power, kind of contour. But with this, when you get into blue, or what it would be indigo, I'm speculating here because I'm not there, but it would, in my opinion, there's a high level of communion and a true sense of sort of order, galactically or universally or something like that, and that it's both scary, I think, in the sense that there's this living up to that, and also the boundedness, freedom confined, that all of the first tier doesn't really have as much of, although it is there. It's just more secretly implicated. It's there in and through something like the New World Order, right? Top-down manipulation, which really makes us more of a slave than a healthy expression of something like indigo would be, for sure. So the way I personally have more or less come to terms with this structure is to see the purpose of purposefulness, or try to really get into that, and the sense that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, or not giants, and there's a responsibility that's kind of associated with that, perhaps. And with all of those soft color VMemes, there's more sense of responsibility associated with them, or need to commune, agape, embrace, and using something like the Borg analogy, there's a rightful fear about what could happen in the second tier, in my opinion, which would be a scientific totalitarian-like system using technology, the first tier technologies, to manipulate mass minds. And so there's a rightful, in my opinion, caution that needs to be happening with those people pushing the boundaries, to not be caught up on too much groupthink, because an integrating system is very powerful, and with technology we can have so much data at our play that we can create structures of religion that suit science to some major degree, but yet are used as tools. So this is what sometimes is called simulcasting, casting different value systems simultaneously as a super dogma. And that would be, in some regards, very similar to a very fundamentalist blue structure. But again, you know, what's contained in healthy blue, this mythological thinking, this allegorical thinking is at its best, is really central to creativity in many regards. You know, even though it's confined within the boundaries of you know, a regimented sort of rule-following morality-ish like superstructure, the allegories, the use of connected thought is, in my opinion, sometimes the best of the blue. You know, then you're not really literally thinking about something in particular. You're using all these different dances of ideas to move one sort of forward. And, you know, that is, I think, some of the responsibility that we have to take on our shoulders to maybe help the more locked-in blue find a way to get it more healthy. You know, indeed, individuals might want to stay within the domain of Christianity, but you know, if we can help them along the way see, and there's so much beauty in what, in my opinion, people like Christ brought out, Buddha, all these different brilliant geniuses, you know, if we can point to them, to their allegorical thinking, to the creative component within it, then that, I think, will help break down some of the more you know, encrusted avenues of thought that's sort of more associated with the traditionalist, fundamentalist blue, and allow them to, within that context still perhaps, envision new ways of looking at what's of ultimate importance, new ways of seeing maybe how Christ, for example, might have took that path, or Buddha, etc. And so, yeah, I don't know if that helps at all, but that's roughly how I've been looking at it lately. But I do have this deep sense of awe for that structure now, because I had avoided it most of my life as well. And now, having done that and going back into these things, there's just a lot of genius in there, that a lot of gold in many regards that kind of can come out of it when you hold that sort of tricky, almost paradox that's associated with dealing with it. Be well.